Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's podcast is number 618. The topic is nutrition, and the title is "It's Not the Creamer in Your Coffee." Okay. So when I do diet reviews with clients or trainers that I mentor, one of the common questions I'll ask once we kind of go through what they normally do in a day, I say, well, where do you think you're messing up? Where do you think something's going wrong of why you don't think you're getting the results that you want? Now, if they knew the answer to this, they'd probably address it and they probably wouldn't need my help. But it's always fun for me to ask because it lets me kind of give an idea of their knowledge. And it also helps me become more aware of if they do have some awareness of their own actions. So sometimes I'll ask somebody, I'll say, what do you think you're getting wrong? And their answer is, well, just not consistent. I eat like crap and I just need somebody to hold me accountable. And it's like, that's freaking awesome because they're aware of what's going on and I can help with that. But sometimes I get the answer of, well, I do put a creamer in my coffee every morning. Maybe that's it. And I have actually had people say this, by the way. But no, it is not the creamer in your coffee. It is not the 10 calories of the thing that you kind of do every morning. It's everything around it. So it's not the extra diet soda. I've had somebody say that, like, well, I normally have 2 diet sodas, but I did go up to 3 the other day, like last week or last month or something. No, it's not an extra diet soda. It's not the sugar-free gum you're chewing every day. It's not that your bread is white bread versus wheat bread. Now, those things actually do have some effect. So artificial sweeteners do have an effect on our aesthetics, and they actually have effect on sugar cravings. And whether our bread or our pasta or all of our carb stuff is wheat or white, complex or not, it does have some effect. But those are all small details, like microscopically small details. So, for example, I was telling a client the other day that I've had people compete in aesthetic competitions, and one of my favorite stories is my mom doing. I think it was her first competition. I was coaching her while I was in college, meaning I lived away from home, and I had come back that week before her competition. I was going to hang out for the week, so I got there and I saw her on the weekend, and I had seen her I think like a Friday night, and then Saturday we went to visit my grandparents. And when my mom took off like her shirt to kind of pose for some muscles in front of my grandparents, her shirt was literally halfway up by the time I uttered, "What the hell did you do?" And what had happened was the night before, she was having kind of a little bit of a panic mode with just knowing the competition was coming up. So her and my dad went on a walk, and she had 3 or 4 packs of sugar-free gum because she said chewing the gum helped her. Well, all of that artificial sweetener caused water retention under her skin. So when she was starting to take her shirt off, I could see that there were excess water under her skin that wasn't there the day before. So I not very politely asked the question, "What the hell did you do?" So because she'd been looking great and I wanted her to do really well on stage, and I didn't want anything to get in the way of that. So she ended up telling me what was happening, and here it was the fact that she ate 3 packs of freaking sugar-free gum in like one night, and those artificial sweeteners did cause water retention. Now, like I said, I recently told a client this. If the clients listen to this, I am saying this with good humor, so please don't get offended. But they asked me if that was their problem. Well, this person who asked me is not 3% body fat. They're not getting ready for a competition. They have other things that we were addressing that's a lot more big picture necessary than whether something's like sugar-free gum or not. So those are the things, the questions I get that are kind of funny, is because when you look at the grand scope of what people do, whether somebody has artificial sweeteners, whether they have creamers in their coffee, none of that stuff really matters when you look at the big picture things that they're getting wrong. So, what are the big details? So, if I'm telling you right now that the small details are the creamer in the coffee and stuff like that, what are the big things? What should you actually pay attention to? And one of the biggest things in concept that people mess up is they're very consistent at being inconsistent. Meaning, we know what we should do, but we don't often do it. Now, you'll think you do it more often than you do, because every time you don't do it, but you have an excuse because why you didn't do it, you make yourself feel okay that you didn't do it, even though you didn't do it. Okay, so we actually just had a podcast, I think like a podcast or two ago, about excuses don't. Let me look up the title and the number for you. So it's podcast 616. Excuses don't eliminate consequences. Meaning that if I had a reason why I didn't eat, like say a good healthy breakfast, and I'm like, oh, I was late, getting the kids ready for school, or I had this and this come up and I just didn't get it in. So then we say, oh, that's okay, I'll catch the next meal. Well, you still didn't have breakfast. You still didn't do the thing you're supposed to do. You're still going to have the consequences of not doing the thing that you didn't do. So you're still not going to have a healthy diet. You're still going to have more body fat. You're still going to have energy loss. You're still going to run the days with in a big caloric deficit, causing cortisol, causing later cravings later in the day, and all of a sudden you're going to overeat at night because you skipped breakfast. There's still consequences to what you did. So often we're blinded to our inconsistency because we believe our excuses to be almost replacements for our misactions. So if we didn't do the action, but we put an excuse in its place, we somehow in our brain think that's okay, but it's not. So people are often way more inconsistent with their behaviors than what they self-report. They're going to skip meals when they're busy because of whatever the bullshit reason they're busy that's too important than their food. So they're going to skip meals. They're then also going to overeat when they're not busy because now they're calm enough to go, holy freaking crap, I'm really hungry. And they have the time to sit down and eat everything in their cupboards that they shouldn't eat. Then they're going to blame events and other people for poor choices. Oh, I normally eat well, but this Saturday was so and so's party, and I did da 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 da, and all of a sudden you ate everything you could eat at a Mexican restaurant. It has nothing to do with so and so's party. You chose the food you put in your face. No one put it in there for you. You chose it while you're eating it. I'm not saying you can't have, kind of fun meals on the weekends here and there. That if you skip one meal, it's the end of the world, or that if you overeat one meal, it's the end of the world. None of these things are that significant of a problem if they were in isolation, but they're not. They're usually just a big story of what we're doing all week. So Monday, we slept in because we were sleeping all weekend. So we kept hitting the snooze button. So we skipped breakfast. We maybe got coffee, got some caffeine in our face to give us some energy, but we skipped food. We get to the office. There's a lot to catch up on from the weekend. So all of a sudden we don't have anything in the morning. It's lunchtime. Maybe the coworkers are going out to lunch back whenever people actually used to go to work. So things have changed a little bit lately. So let's go with that. So let's say you're working from home, since that is more common as of right now. So you're going to be sitting at the computer trying to get stuff done or whatever it is you do for work. And taking time for lunch is going to seem like kind of a nuisance to do. So you tend to eat something quick that's kind of nearby in the cupboard that doesn't take a lot of prep time. Or we just skip lunch as well. So people who do go out to work, maybe they go out to work with some friends. They go out to lunch with some friends. And because they're out to the restaurant, they have, a little bit of the bread or the chips or something that's sitting on the table before the meal comes. They eat their meal with burgers and fries. They maybe have, Coca-Cola or sweet tea with it. All of a sudden you end up having way more calories than you would normally have if it was a meal that you prepared ahead of time. So these are things that just kind of cascade throughout the day. And that when we look at the end of a week, there's a lot of inconsistency. So one of the things we offer, and we offer it for free, is an adherence chart. So something you can track your efforts throughout the week. So if you like the idea of this, just email us at brutalironjim@gmail.com and I'll send you the chart for free. But if you look at a day and say the person's supposed to have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, and maybe they're supposed to have like something in the morning to kind of give them like kind of a mid-morning snack, mid-morning calories to get them from breakfast to lunch, and then a mid-afternoon kind of snack. And this is actually a pretty good structure for people to have kind of like the 3 normal meals plus 2 mini meals. And the reason why is we tend to be more active during the day than at night. So if we can find a way to get more calories in during the day, that prevents us from overeating at night, and we tend to look better, feel better, and everything goes good for us. So that 5 meals a day, where it's not necessarily that you have to cook food and sit down and have like a 3-course dinner every time you eat. It's just you put calories in your face intentionally 5 times a day. So that structure, if you do that 7 days a week, that's 35 meals in a week. in our chart that we give you, you would actually track how well you do. So if you have a meal that you're supposed to have that you know is good, you get a check mark. If you have food, but it's not the right food, it's something that just kind of filled the place of the right food, or you went out and, had some pizza or did this and that, you had something that you knew wasn't what you were supposed to do, then you have an X. You ate the food, but it was just not good food. So X. Or if you miss the meal, you leave the space blank. So we have 35 times a week that we're supposed to get a check mark. But if you look at most people when they report their stuff, they're going to be handing in like a report when I do this for clients and stuff. Usually their first week or so is about 25 out of 35. So most people mess up about a third of the meals that they try to get right. Within the ones they mess up, they have an excuse or they have a reason or something that was in the way of them doing the right thing for most of them. So therefore, they're going to kind of numb themselves to the fact that they messed those up because they knew why they messed it up. Oh, it wasn't my fault. It was because of this, this, this. So therefore, we don't blame ourselves or we don't kind of put that consequences of our actions on us. So that's something that really, really helps for someone to see how inconsistent they really are. Now, I've done that chart with clients for years and years and years and years. And if somebody gets 32 out of 35 meals right every week, regardless of what the other three kind of reasons were that they didn't get the 3 meals right, but if they get 32 out of 35, most people make great progress. Whether that's progress towards fat loss, progress towards lean tissue gains, somebody trying to bodybuild, they want to build muscle but not gain a lot of fat along the way. So 32 out of 35 seems to work totally fine. Somebody wanting performance, so maximum performance, they want to eat the best to be their strongest, to be their fastest, whatever their performance might be, whether it's a sport, or like a barbell sport like strongman or powerlifting. But commonly, 32 out of 35, great, everybody does wonderful. 30 out of 35, they'll make some progress, but it's kind of slow. And if they really wanted to push things harder and get better results, they would bump themselves up to 32 out of 35 consistency. But if somebody gets less than 30, they tend not to really make a positive difference towards their goals. They kind of look the same, even if they feel like they're putting in effort. So the person who hands in a report that gets 25 out of 35 right is going to say that they follow the diet. They're going to say that they tried hard. And they did. They put in effort. I'm not saying they didn't, but it was inconsistent, and it was too often that they let excuses get in the way from what they were supposed to do. But that adherence chart is a really good tool to see if you're truly as consistent as you think you are. And like I said, I've done this for years and years and years, and almost no one has ever self-reported what actually came out to be true. So that's something that we want to look at. That's the big picture thing that messes up most people. It's not the creamer in your coffee. Okay, it's not those little details like artificial sweeteners, whether something's wheat or white, whether it's organic or not, none of that stuff. It's that what you know you should be doing, you're not doing it frequently enough to get the results that you want. Okay? Now, what if for the people who are consistent? So I just talked to somebody this week. They are an MMA fighter, and they actually own a couple gyms, and they do CrossFit training as well. And in that person's example, what they reported and what their body type looked like, and I believe them completely, was actually really good eating. They were very consistent, and they were eating good foods. And they were wondering, why am I not leaner? So they weren't overweight. They looked good, like in clothes, but I'm certain of what they meant was they felt like they should be more kind of like shredded, like lower body fat percentage, see more like veins, more cuts in their muscles, and they felt like they were a softer look than what their efforts really should show. And what I told them is they are eating well, they're just not eating enough. So they were actually under eating to the point where they were barely able to fuel their daily needs, let alone any kind of recovery from the training. So their body was very highly stressed, therefore had a lot of water retention. So I've worked with a lot of CrossFit coaches and CrossFit Games athletes, and since they tend to be very highly driven, highly physical people, they eat well, but they often are afraid to get body fat because it'll impair their performance. And in conjunction with the type of dieting that CrossFit usually promotes, they have a hard time getting in enough calories. So typically what you see is they're underfed. They're performing well just because they're psychotic enough to push themselves through physical pain. They take enough caffeine to kill a horse. They can find a way to get their performance done. But it's not fueled through healthy enough food, so their body's stressed and they tend to be watery. So I have worked with a ton of those athletes where I start telling them to eat more and more food. All of a sudden, their performance goes up, their strength goes up, and they actually look leaner and drier. So this is an amazing kind of process to them, and they always feel amazed. Oh my gosh, you mean I should actually eat this much? And I'm like, heck, freaking yeah! Like you're working out 4 or 5 times a day. You're up on your feet, running around like a crazy person. You have muscle damage all the time. Your body needs fed. So an example like that where somebody's consistent, but it's not working. They're consistent in their efforts, but what their efforts are is not producing what they want. One of the most common reasons is often undereating. Now, if somebody is consistent and they're overeating, so an example of what if they're consistent but they go out to eat for dinner 3 to 4 times a week, or they have big meals here and there, then that's something that is more commonly understood. So typically a person's going to know if I eat out, 3, 4, 5 times a week and have burgers and fries, no wonder I'm not going to look my best or feel my best or lose weight or any of those things. But you do get people every now and then who are confused towards that. Just understand that foods in restaurants have significantly higher calories than if you were to prepare the food at home. And in those cases, if they're consistent with what they're doing, and they say, hey, you know what, I'm not losing fat or I'm not feeling better, I need to eat cleaner, then they'll naturally reduce their calories and they will start seeing results. So typically that person, once they start doing whatever kind of normal dietary onset habits are, they'll start seeing some results. So it's more so when somebody's consistent and not getting results that's likely the case of undereating. So another example I had was a powerlifter who reached out to me recently, and she's a nutrition fitness specialist. I forget what the proper the term she used for her degree or certification was, and she does powerlifting and she also does personal training and stuff. And super awesome person, very intelligent, just too rough on themselves, meaning that they were under eating. So they got up in the morning, they worked with clients, they had their workout, they went to a second job, then they trained clients again, then they finally got home late in the day. And when looking through their reported diets, what they did was they started with no food in the day. They got up and they trained morning clients without any food. So they did kind of a fasted morning. Then they only had a small shake of a pre-workout shake before their workout. So they dug a hole, deficit of energy and effort by training the clients without any food. Then by taking the pre-workout, the caffeine that they're about to, they take in the pre-workout masks this deficit and they can get through their workout. But by the end of the workout, their body has an insanely huge deficit that it's in. And then they're only eating 2 or 3 meals throughout the rest of the day after that. So their body is in an extreme underfed state. Therefore, the body fat that it's using to try to fuel those large deficits throughout the day, it deems that body fat to be extremely important. And the body will not let you just burn it all off. It'll waste off muscle tissue, whatever it needs to do. It'll reduce metabolic processes such as growing your hair, your skin, your nails, anything that's non-essential, not organ related. It'll reduce those down to as slow as possible. So that way it reduces your metabolism, your resting metabolism. So how many calories you use throughout the day. The body will start to adjust to that. And anytime this person overeats in any way whatsoever, so maybe they break down the third night and they have a big meal because they're just so freaking hungry, or they have a sweet tooth and they always just little sweet treats and things they snack on throughout the day. Any moment that their body has any surplus, it'll store that surplus as body fat to try to protect itself against those huge deficits that they're doing at the beginning of the day. So this person's consistent with their habits, but they're under eating, and what they're trying to set up and what they're doing is so restrictive, that's actually holding them back, not only from fat loss, but also from performance. So we actually talked about this occurrence in podcast 614, just a couple podcasts ago, titled The Effects of Caffeine-Fueled Fasted Workouts. So what is the negative effects whenever we're in a fasted, like underfed state? We take caffeine to mask our low energy, and we just push through activity anyhow. So we talk about that, and you can learn more about it in podcast 614. So this is what we want to look at. If you feel like you are not getting progress, whether it's progress towards fat loss, progress towards performance improvement, progress towards aesthetic improvement, wanting to build muscle but staying lean, and you're not sure what's going wrong, it's not the creamer in your coffee. It's not the artificial sweeteners. It's not whether something's wheat or white. Okay? It's going to be these big picture things. Now, how do you learn about the big picture things? Podcast number 41, titled Diet Right, What Matters Most. We talk about the most important components of a diet, whether it's a diet for fat loss, performance, whether it's a diet for aesthetic, like lean gains, a diet for any intended purpose. What are the most important components? And we discuss not only those individual components, but we also talk about how do you learn more about each one. So, for example, the first component is calories. Calories determine the direction of a diet. If I overeat calories, I will gain weight, regardless of what the food is. It could be the most healthiest, organic, whatever in the world you want to eat. So you can eat Brussels sprouts and kale, but if you eat 5,000 calories a day of that, you will gain weight. Likewise, if you undereat your calories, you will initially start to lose weight, even if it's pizza and ice cream. It doesn't even matter what the calories are. You'll initially start to lose weight. So calories determine the direction of a diet. Now, what happens if you're actually under your calories? We do talk about that. Podcast 426, why eating less isn't good for fat loss. So how do you know how little is too little? In general, your calories that you would eat to maintain your current weight, whatever your normal habits are. If you reduce your calories under 70% of that number, you are eating too little, and eventually you'll plateau and you won't lose any more weight after the initial response of the body. So whatever our normal calories are that we eat to just kind of maintain who we are, we really only want to take 10 to 20% off that number and kind of live at that number. And that'll help us lose body fat, but not shut down the process and not feel like absolute crap throughout the whole process. So we learn about that stuff in podcast 41, and then it branches off into other podcasts as well. Okay, so you can check that podcast out to know what the big picture things are, to know where you should start with your efforts. Okay, next thing we want to do is to track 1 week of your habits. So email us, brutalirongym@gmail.com. We'll send you the adherence chart. Or you can make a chart of your own. But the whole point of it is how many meals you're supposed to have per day. Check off whether you ate a good meal at each meal. If you ate food but it was bad food, write an X. If you skipped a meal, leave a space. Okay? Notice how in a check, an X, and a space, we don't ask you why. We don't care why you ate the good food. We don't care why you ate the bad food. We don't care why you skipped the meals. Your excuses don't matter. Don't write them down. No one gives a shit. Okay? Your body does not care. Your body only responds to what you do, not what you intended to do. So, track that every single day. See by the end of the week how consistent you actually were. If you weren't consistent, how do you build consistency? Is by continuing to track your efforts week after week after week. Identify if there are kind of common things that have gotten in the way. So, do you have a common mistake, a common excuse? If you do, frickin' address it. Get after it. Figure it out. I promise there's a book about it. Whatever it is, okay? So you can find information to help you. If you're not sure, but you know what it actually is, if you've identified your most common excuse, email us at brutalirongym@gmail.com. We'll help you find a way to attack it, address it, correct it, no matter what it is. Okay? Even if it's emotional, mental thing, if you get into self-sabotaging, please reach out to us. We'll understand. So I've worked with tons of people who, for various reasons of their history and their past, have self-sabotaging behaviors. If you find out that that's the case, reach out to us. We'll help you. I promise. There's no judgment. We just want you to live healthier and happier. I appreciate you listening to these podcasts. I appreciate you checking in with us. And I want to make sure that you live the best life possible for you. So whatever the reason is, let us know and we'll help you through it. You are not alone. You have help. We're right here. Okay? Now, if you are consistent and you go through and you do that chart and you're like, man, I freaking aced this week. I did great, but I'm not getting the results that I want. What the hell's going on? Well, chances are you're messing up one of the big picture things. You're either not eating enough, not eating enough protein, your meal timing's way off. Some of those big picture things are probably in the way. So you can learn more about that by listening to podcast 41. And then there's supporting podcasts off each component of the top 5 components, and you can listen to those as well. The information is available to you. You just have to go out there, find it, and ensure that you're actually doing it. If you have a problem with execution on the big information, or if you've listened to it and you still don't really know how to address it, again, you can email us at brutalirongym@gmail.com. We're here. So we want to help you. So the whole point of this podcast, even though I'm sounding like a sarcastic jerk when I say it's not the cream in your coffee, is because I want you to know better on how to help yourself live your happiest life. And if there's any way we can be involved to kind of help you do that, we always will be happy to help. Okay? So, hopefully this was helpful, and you can use any kind of tracking you want, or you can email us for your tracking chart, but just track and see what your efforts are this upcoming week. It's probably inconsistency in your efforts, not the small details. Okay? So, if you do think this podcast is helpful, please share it. So if you can share it on social media, you can share it email, text message, you can, yell it to a neighbor out the window, whatever you want to do. Just if you share this information, it can help raise other people's awareness of good, healthy, happy information. And they too can get past blaming the creamer in their coffee. Okay? So if you have anybody you care about and you want them to live a happier life, please share the podcast with them. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, or if you ever want to reach out to us and let us know a topic you'd like to hear about in the podcast, we're always here, and we're always happy to help. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.